My name is Aditya, and welcome to Arc Characters, a channel where we look beyond the surface of fictional characters and explore the psychology, philosophy, and ideas that make them unforgettable. Today, we're talking about one of the most terrifying characters ever written, Hans Landa.
A man who rarely needs violence to control a room. He doesn't threaten people. He talks to them. He asks questions. He smiles. He waits. And somehow, by the time you realize what he's doing, you've already given him exactly what he wanted. But what makes Hans Landa so dangerous? Is it his intelligence? His ability to read people? Or his understanding of one simple truth?
People will reveal almost anything when you make them feel safe. In this video, we're going to break down the art of psychological warfare used by Hans Landa and understand how he manipulates fear, language, social pressure, and human behavior to gain control. Because Hans Landa isn't frightening because he's the loudest person in the room. He's frightening because he's usually the smartest one. This is Hans Landa Explained, and this is the art of psychological warfare.
Winner is Christoph Waltz. Christoph Waltz. Christoph Waltz.
Christoph Waltz is a major part of why Hans Landa works so well. His performance wasn't just praised, it was essentially the performance that introduced him to the world as an international star. Most movie villains use violence to control people. Hans Landa uses something much quieter. A question, a compliment, a smile. By the time his victims realize they're being interrogated, they've already revealed more than they intended. That's what makes Hans Landa one of cinema's most unsettling villains. It isn't his rank, it isn't his intelligence alone, and it certainly isn't his gun. His real weapon is his understanding of human behavior. He knows that every conversation has an invisible battlefield beneath it. Words aren't just for communication, they're tools for controlling attention, creating pressure, and exposing fear. Most people enter a conversation trying to express themselves. Hans Landa enters trying to understand everyone else. And once he understands them, the outcome is almost inevitable. What's truly terrifying is that he rarely lies. He simply guides other people toward truths they desperately wanted to keep hidden. Most villains threaten people with guns. Hans Landa preferred grammar. To understand why he is so effective, we first need to understand what psychological warfare actually is. People often imagine psychological warfare as manipulation through intimidation or mind games. But the most effective form is much simpler. It is making someone believe they are still in control while quietly taking that control away. That is exactly what Landa does. He never begins by attacking. He begins by listening. Notice how he enters almost every important interaction with genuine curiosity. He asks polite questions, he allows people to speak, he lets uncomfortable silences stretch just long enough for someone to fill them. Those moments aren't accidental. They're carefully created opportunities. Silence makes most people uncomfortable. We rush to fill it, we explain too much, we justify ourselves, we volunteer information nobody even asked for. Landa understands this better than anyone. He doesn't interrupt because silence is doing the interrogation for him. The opening farmhouse scene is perhaps the greatest example of psychological warfare ever put on film. At first glance, it looks like a simple conversation between a Nazi officer and a French dairy farmer. In reality, it's a chess match where only one player knows the game has already started. Landa begins with warmth. He compliments the farmer. He praises the quality of the milk. He speaks respectfully. Nothing about him appears threatening, and that's exactly why he's dangerous. Real fear doesn't begin when someone raises their voice. It begins when you can't figure out what they're thinking.
If Landa entered shouting accusations, the farmer would immediately become defensive. His mind would focus on survival. Instead, Landa lowers the farmer's defenses by creating an illusion of normality. The conversation feels ordinary, almost friendly. But every question quietly narrows the space in which the farmer can hide. This is conversational framing. Landa decides what the conversation is about before anyone else realizes it. The farmer thinks he's answering harmless questions. Landa is actually measuring reactions. Every hesitation, every glance, every shift in breathing, every tiny inconsistency. Human beings leak information constantly, not because we're bad liars, because our bodies often tell the truth before our words do. Landa pays attention to both. That is the difference between intelligence and observation. Many intelligent people know facts. Landa studies patterns. He isn't simply hearing answers. He allows people to become comfortable enough to make mistakes. It's almost like watching a spider build tension into its web instead of chasing its prey. The victim walks forward willingly, then suddenly realizes there was never an escape. Tarantino's filmmaking makes this psychological process even stronger. Notice how little music exists during the farmhouse interrogation. Without music guiding our emotions, we're forced to pay attention to every word, every pause, every smile, every sip of milk. The audience becomes trapped inside the same uncertainty as the farmer. He creates situations where people expose them voluntarily, and that distinction matters. Because forcing information out of someone is relatively easy. Making someone hand it to you while believing they're still in control? That's psychological warfare. Psychological warfare doesn't always begin with intimidation. Sometimes it begins with making someone comfortable. Sometimes it begins with asking a harmless question. Sometimes it begins with silence. And sometimes it begins with a smile. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to Art Characters and supporting the channel by leaving a like and sharing your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next analysis. If you want to explore more characters and the psychology behind them, you can watch another video by clicking on the screen right now. Thank you for watching.